"Grandpa, they're signing something today," Nora breathed, glancing toward the hallway. "I heard Mom say assisted living, and Dad asked about Sunday visiting hours. They think you forget things. They're making a list." Her voice trembled. "If you stay here, they'll make it true. Please go now before they turn our kitchen into an office for your goodbye."
"Grandpa, please don't be here at 2," Nora whispered, breath warm against my ear. "They keep calling it assisted living, like it's a favor, but it sounds like a goodbye with polite lighting." Her fingers pinched the cuff of my flannel. "Mom wrote intake this afternoon." The kitchen hummed with ordinary noises, the fridge, the clock, the leaf blower 2 houses down, while something quiet and heavy settled in my chest. 12-year-old courage lived in Nora's eyes. She understood more than the room would allow. "Upstairs," I told her softly. "If your mom asks, you're on your science poster. You did the right thing." She slipped a small black remote into my palm. "Garage," she mouthed, then disappeared, her door clicking shut like a secret taken up the stairs. Madison's planner lay open on the counter, a neat confession in red ink. Today's date circled, the word placement, and in parentheses, afternoon. No anger, just a steadiness rising from the floorboards. If they were building a story without me, I would not stand still and admire the craftsmanship. Wallet, ID, a slim folder from the personal drawer, numbers, contacts, a copy of a power of attorney I'd never needed. My wedding ring turned once, an old reflex when choices mattered. I shrugged into my denim jacket, paused at the threshold, listened. Lemon cleaner, old coffee, the familiar house pretending it hadn't heard what I had. The garage motor sighed at the touch of Nora's remote. Sunlight laid a pale rectangle on the concrete, dust drifting like slow snow. I crossed the floor, lifted the side latch I'd oiled last month, and stepped into the narrow alley the neighborhood shared like a rumor. Dry leaves scraped pavement. Somewhere, a mower droned. I kept my pace even, the way I taught Nora to walk with a book on her head. Centered, steady, not looking back. At the end of the alley, the bus stop offered a faded bench and a city map gone soft at the corners. I sat more to blend in than to rest. Preparation had been my language all my life. Smoke detectors tested on Sundays, escape ladders under beds, latches installed where small hands might wander. It turns out, sometimes the emergency is being turned into paperwork by the people who should know your story by heart. The blue and white valley ride rounded the corner, brakes whispering. The driver, a woman about my age with a gray braid tucked under a cap, glanced from my face to the folder I held like a ledger of quiet facts. "Where to?" she asked, bright without prying. "Downtown," I said, stepping up and finding the pole. "Mountain West First Bank." "Good place to be clear about things." I chose a seat mid-car, facing the aisle. Outside the window, my block offered its usual collage: porch ferns, chalked hopscotch, cooling pumpkins on steps, normal enough to make a man doubt his own ears. Somewhere behind that view, across a fence, my granddaughter would be lining up markers by color, listening for a car door, listening for a voice that would call control by a gentler name. The bus lurched and settled into its route. My heart did not pound, it counted, slow and precise, like at the workbench when I measured twice and cut once. I folded my hands over the folder and watched the north end give way to brick and glass. 2 o'clock was the line they drew. Mine was different. I would not be there to be signed away. An older couple boarded with grocery bags. A college kid scrolled past news he didn't read. The driver tapped the wheel to a song I couldn't hear. The ordinary world kept moving, as if I weren't carrying a hinge that could swing the rest of my life. The driver caught my eye in the mirror. "Bank's next stop." I stood before the bell chimed, fingers sure on the rail, knees not as young but still honest. The bus eased against the curb. Outside, Mountain West's glass facade took the autumn light like a promise written in steel and sky. I stepped down to the sidewalk and felt the ground answer back. If this moment stirred something in you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you do in my shoes, and where are you listening from? If you feel like it, leave me a gentle note in the comments, and if this story might steady someone you love, feel free to quietly share it forward. Mountain West First Bank smelled faintly of polished wood and cold air from the glass doors. The lobby was a hush of carpet and low voices. I walked to the concierge desk and rested my hand on the counter. "Safe deposit, please," I said. "Of course," the assistant manager replied, glancing at my driver's license and the brass key I set beside it. "Mr. Carter, right this way." We moved past framed photographs of Boise and black and white canals, brick warehouses, a streetcar gone 50 years, and stopped at a door that recognized her badge with a soft green light. The vault beyond was not a movie vault. It was quiet, the walls threaded with steel boxes. "I'll give you privacy," she said. "Ring if you need copies." When the door clicked shut, I set the box down and eased the lid open. The familiar order calmed me. Envelopes labeled by hand, a thin binder, a leather notebook from the year my wife and I promised ourselves we'd keep better records. On top sat 3 letters on company letterhead, each a renewal I had read twice when they arrived and filed without ceremony. Safe Sense Garage Sensor, license term extended, quarterly deposit schedule unchanged. Attached, a stub from the summer 55,000 even. Child Guard Smart Latch, license term extended, quarterly deposit 35,000. Stove Watch Auto Off, license term extended, quarterly deposit 22,500. I traced the edge of one page with a finger, the way I used to check a cut for burrs. The devices were not glamorous. They did one thing and did it every time. It turns out reliability pays, quietly. I opened the binder. Blue chip funds and dividend ETFs sat in their sleeves, purchased in dull batches over the years. A statement showed balances just north of $5.2 million. Municipal bonds on the next tab tallied $3.4 million, staggered maturities like fence pickets. Cash accounts came to $900,000. A sheet in the back summarized the rental in Meridian and the insurance that sleeps under it. At the bottom, in the tiny type the printer favors, net worth $12,800,000. My wife's handwriting lived on a yellowed index card tucked in the pocket. "Don't forget to breathe. Don't forget to eat. Don't sign anything hungry." I smiled, a muscle memory that hurt a little and helped more. I pressed the room's call button. The assistant manager returned with a patient face. "Could you make me certified copies of these renewals and the summary page?" I asked, "and print an updated safe deposit inventory with today's date?" "Absolutely." She took the pages like a nurse carrying x-rays and returned a few minutes later with a neat stack and a glass of water. "Anything else, Mr. Carter?" "That will do for today. Thank you for the care." When she left, I took out my phone. 2 missed calls from Lucas, 1 text from Madison. "Are you home? We're worried." The words looked polite dressed in pixels. I set the phone face down and dragged the chair closer to the table. I was not hiding, I was preparing. I unlocked my contacts and found Lionel Green. Elder law, estates, the calm voice who never rushed a client toward an answer he did not understand. The bank's HVAC sighed through the vent as if the building had a steady lung. I tapped call. Lionel Green. "Lionel, it's Sam Carter," I said. "I need to see you first thing tomorrow." There was a pause, the sound of a calendar opening. 8 sharp, he said. "Bring everything." "I will." 8 sharp, Lionel opened his own door and waved me into a room that smelled of lemon oil and fresh paper. His suit was the color of river rock. His eyes did the same thing the river does, took everything in and kept moving. "Tell me the short version," he said. I laid the certified copies on the table. "Royalties steady, portfolio conservative. My son and daughter-in-law have been researching assisted living and asked about conservatorship. I will not be made into paperwork." Lionel nodded once. "Then we build armor you can still move in." He flipped a legal pad and wrote headings. "Documents first, strategy next." We started with control. A durable power of attorney, springing, not immediate, naming an independent fiduciary from his firm as agent only if 2 physicians certify incapacity. A healthcare power of attorney and HIPAA release so a doctor speaks with the person I choose, not whoever shows up loudest. A living will that says I want comfort and dignity, not strangers deciding by spreadsheet. He spoke in clean sentences. The pen kept time. "Now the trust," he said. "Revocable, so you're the trustee while you're well. Successor trustee. Idaho Trust Services, not family. We place the Maple Avenue house and your accounts in the trust. Pour over will to sweep strays." For Nora, I said, and felt my throat tighten. We create a subtrust funded at $3.5 million, he replied, already drafting. Spendthrift provisions so creditors and opportunists can't reach it. Distributions for education, healthcare, reasonable housing, and enrichment at the discretion of the trustee. No cash to parents, no role for them as trustee, advisor, or signatory. When does she control it herself? At 26, outright vesting, unless a future court determines a different age is in her best interest. Until 18, any extraordinary disbursement must be reviewed with a guardian ad litem. We'll also add a no contest clause. Anyone who challenges in bad faith takes nothing. He slid the first signature page toward me. The pen felt heavier than its weight. Conservatorship, I said, if they try? We preempt, Lionel said. Capacity isn't a feeling, it's evidence. Get a baseline cognition screen from your primary care this week. Keep a daily log, meals, medications, exercise, bills paid, appointments kept. Maintain receipts. Enroll utilities in autopay and print confirmations. Ask the bank to note today's visit in their file. If a petition is filed, we respond with records, not outrage. He looked up. Limit contact for a few days to avoid ambush. Communicate in writing. Decline any meeting you haven't proposed. And Sam, no signing anything hungry. I smiled despite myself. My wife wrote that on an index card, I said. She was right, he replied, and placed a blank tab in a red folder labeled Carter Capacity Evidence. Also, title the Maple House into the trust immediately. That avoids being personally dragged into any emergency placement decision. We reviewed beneficiary designations, the pour-over, and a letter of wishes to Nora, plain words about safety, not money. He read it once and said, "Keep it in your handwriting." I signed. The nib rasped like a match along a box, small heat making light. Lionel gathered the originals, stacked them with practiced hands, and checked his watch. Last piece. I want a neutral set of eyes on Nora's welfare. I'll email Karen Patel, a guardian ad litem who is exacting and fair. My phone buzzed almost on cue. A new message slid across the screen. Ms. Patel, subject, family welfare conversation, Thursday, 2 in the afternoon. Location, neutral office, downtown, please confirm. I typed, confirmed, and set the phone down. Paper had turned into plan had turned into posture. Armor you can still move in, I said. Lionel capped his pen. Exactly. Now, go eat something and don't answer the door for anyone you didn't invite. The Maple Avenue house sat quiet beneath cottonwood shade, a modest craftsman with a deep porch and a roofline that looked like it had learned patience. The agent unlocked the door and the hinges gave a polite sigh. Inside, the rooms were clean and empty, the kind of emptiness that feels like paper waiting for ink. Pine floors, a narrow staircase, a kitchen with sunlight pooling on tile. Out the back windows the old fence ran between yards, and beyond it my son's lawn and the corner of Nora's window where a paper solar system hung by thread. We have 2 offers contingent on financing, the agent said, setting a folder on the counter, and 1 investor circling. You mentioned cash. I did, I said. No contingencies besides clear title and a simple inspection for safety hazards. I can wire earnest money today and close in 10 days. Her eyebrows lifted a notch at the certainty. $342,000 would take it off the table right now. I can write it up. We sat at the kitchen island on the only 2 stools left in the house. She slid forms across and I read every line, the habit of a man who knows that fractions matter. Purchase price in words and numbers. Closing at a small title office near downtown. Possession on recording. I initialed with a hand that did not shake, and she called the seller while I called my bank. Fee-free wire out to title in 1 hour, the banker said. Do you want us to note the trust vesting now or at closing? Now, I said. Title should read Samuel Carter, trustee of the Sam Carter Revocable Trust, dated today's date. Please email instructions to the title officer and copy my attorney. By the time we finished a slow walkthrough, an email had answered itself on my phone. Wire confirmation. Earnest money received. A second email from the title office acknowledging the vesting language for the deed. 10 days became less an estimate than a promise the county recorder could keep.
Upstairs, the small front room faced Nora's window across the property line. I measured the wall with my eyes and pictured a simple desk, a lamp with a shade that throws a circle of warm light, a corkboard for school schedules and sketches. In the closet, 2 shelves would hold books, and a shoebox full of odds and ends a 12-year-old considers treasure. I could hear her laugh in my head, the one that appears when an idea clicks. Back downstairs, I took a yellow pad and made a list the way I have done my whole life. Child guard latches on the basement door and cleaning cabinet. Stove watch modules on the range with a manual override only a tall person could reach. Safe sense in the garage, with the door sensor tied to an audible chime for good measure. Battery checks on the first Sunday of the month, written on the calendar in ink. Smoke detectors where they belong, not where they creep toward the doorway to look better. The garage would be a workshop again, though smaller, ordered like a hymn. Pegboard, hand tools, a vise bolted to the bench. I would mount a little sign where I could see it when I sat down to work. Safety is love in action. I could show Nora how a good latch sounds when it closes, the clean click that says the job honors the person it protects. Out back, the fence looked less like a barrier than a line people agree to step to and not over. I stood at the kitchen sink and watched a curtain move in my son's house. For a moment, the paper planets in Nora's window turned, and a slow pride passed through me like the first swallow of water after a long walk. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Madison. "We have a consultation with an elder law attorney on Wednesday at 10. It's just to understand options. Please call." I looked at the wire receipt and then at the fence. Options read differently when the ground under your feet belongs to your better plan. I set the phone face down and wrote one more line on my list. Keys for Nora, on a blue lanyard, labeled simply home. Back at the hotel, the kind with carpet that hushes your steps, I spread the day across the desk like a map. Certified copies on the left, the wire receipt centered, a fresh legal pad on the right. The room smelled faintly of detergent and someone else's coffee. I set the little digital recorder beside my wallet and pressed power. The red number blinked to life, idle, patient. I made folders the way a carpenter makes jigs, so the work repeats cleanly. Packet A, assisted living research. I printed screenshots Madison had viewed, facility names, prices, the small print about lockdown nights. Packet B, intent. Photos of her planner with the circled date, the word placement, and the parenthesis I could not unsee. Packet C, money. My estimate of their debts from what they'd said over the years and the records I could lawfully gather. I wasn't building a case to win an argument. I was building clarity to survive one. Lionel's voice from the morning still steadied the air. Capacity isn't a feeling, it's evidence. I opened my calendar and booked what he'd asked for. A cognition baseline with my primary care for Wednesday morning, a pharmacist consult to review my medications, reminders to pay 2 utility bills from the hotel's business center and print the confirmations. I labeled a red folder Carter Capacity and slid the fresh printouts inside. The routine felt like breathing with purpose. I drew a line down my pad and wrote, "Facts before feelings." Under it, 4 sentences in plain English I would read if my voice tried to climb. I am competent and safe at home. I decline any placement. We can discuss your concerns, but we will not invent problems to justify convenience. From this moment, all important matters will be in writing. The recorder sat there, unblinking. I checked the battery, swapped in fresh ones, and tucked a spare set into the pocket of my jacket. I practiced placing it on the table and saying, calmly, "For clarity, I'm recording this conversation." Not a threat, not a flourish. A line that says, "We will not drown in shifting stories." I called Lionel to confirm the shape of Saturday. 2 o'clock, their house, I said. I'll open with the timeline, then intent, then money, then boundaries. Good, he said. Leave the trust for the second half. It's a boundary, not a bribe. Understood. And eat before you go. I smiled at the ceiling and ordered a late lunch from the diner next door. When it came, I ate slowly, then walked the hallway to clear my head. There's a kind of fear that makes people talk too loud. I wasn't afraid of the conversation. I was afraid of speaking past what mattered. Back at the desk, I drafted a message to Lucas and kept trimming until no air leaked around the words. Let's talk Saturday at 2 o'clock at your place. This is about my living situation and Nora's well-being. I'm coming alone. Please make sure we can speak without interruptions. I pressed send and watched the blue bubble fade into the quiet.
The reply arrived fast. Okay. 2. Another bubble followed. We're worried about you. I set the phone down and wrote, worried, not honest, in the margin. People say worry when what they mean is pressure. Honesty is heavier and doesn't always look polite. I packed the packets in order A, B, C, added the bank copies, slipped the recorder into the top sleeve, and zipped the portfolio shut. The zipper sounded final, the way a door sounds when you lock it because you love who's inside. Before lights out, I texted Nora from the number she knew from me. I'm okay, working on something important. You were brave and right to warn me. I'll see you soon. 3 dots pulsed, then her reply. Okay, I can sleep now. I turned off the lamp. In the dark, the city hummed through the window unit and tires whispered on State Street. I lay still and pictured the living room where we would sit, the table where I would place the recorder, the chair where my son would learn what a line looks like when a father draws it straight. Across the room, the red number on the recorder glowed faint as an ember. Saturday, 2 o'clock, it seemed to say. Be ready.
2 o'clock. Their front door opened like a held breath. Madison's perfume reached me first, white flowers over lemon cleaner. Lucas stood aside, jaw tight, and led me into the living room. The coffee table was cleared as if for a practical exam. I set my portfolio down, placed a small digital recorder in the center, and clicked it on. For clarity, I'm recording this conversation, I said. You'll get a copy. Lucas nodded at the red light. Madison folded her arms, unfolded them, then smoothed an invisible wrinkle in the sofa seam. Facts before feelings, I said, opening packet A. These are the facilities you researched. Maple Ridge, Golden Pines, Valley View. Same prices, same fine print about lockdown nights. Note the Sunday visiting hours. I slid the printouts across the table. Packet B, intent. I laid down photos of Madison's planner. Today's date circled in red, the word placement, and, in parentheses, afternoon. I added screenshots of her emails asking about intake. The paper made a small sound like a door quietly shutting. We're trying to keep you safe, Madison said. Safe is a door you can open from the inside, I replied.
A cage is a door that locks politely. Lucas rubbed his temples. Dad, we're drowning. We thought... We'll get to money, I said. First, the law you asked about. Conservatorship. I placed a single page summarizing the standard. Capacity isn't a feeling, it's evidence. Courts require less restrictive options first. What you've built here is a story, not a record. Madison's chin lifted. You forget things. You left the stove on last month. I cut the breaker and replaced the auto-off module the next morning, I said, tapping a receipt. That's the difference between narrative and proof. Silence gathered. A pipe clicked somewhere in the walls. The house smelled like citrus and worry. I won't be placed, I said evenly. I will discuss your concerns, but we will not invent problems to justify convenience. From now on, important matters go in writing. Lucas's hands opened and closed. We don't want a fight. Neither do I. I want clarity. I turned to the last sleeve but kept the page face down. Before we talk solutions, we need the right question. Is this about my safety, or is it about your pressure? I flipped the page and slid it into the light. Columns, dates, interest rates, minimums, a careful estimate drawn from public records and what you've told me. This is my best guess at your balances and obligations, I said quietly. Is this why you called it help? The clock on the mantel ticked once, loud as a gavel. Madison looked toward the hallway, then back at the paper. Lucas stared at the numbers like they were a language he almost remembered. The recorder's red eye blinked steadily between us, holding the room to the line we had drawn. Outside, a siren Dopplered past and faded, ordinary life resuming. I kept my voice level and waited for their answer. Lucas stared at the columns like they might blink and show a smaller sum. We're underwater, he said finally, voice low. Cards, a second mortgage. It got away from us. Madison's mouth pressed thin. We didn't plan to hurt you. We planned to survive. The recorder's red light blinked once, even as shame colored the room. I believe the pressure is real, I said, but calling it help while signing me away is not a solution. So here is the line. I slid the debt page back toward them and opened my portfolio again. I won't be placed, and I won't disappear either. They both looked up. I set a single page in the center. Yesterday, I purchased the house next door on Maple Avenue. Cash. Title is already vested in my revocable trust. I'm not moving there to spy on you. I'm moving there so Nora can knock on my door without a gatekeeper. Madison's eyes flicked, involuntary, toward the window. Lucas swallowed. You bought the house? He said, as if the words were heavier than English. I nodded. $342,000. 10-day close. Keys on recording. I could feel the question forming behind their eyes. How? I'm not making you a target, I said.
But you need to understand I am not vulnerable in the way you imagined. I tapped the next page, a one-line summary. Between royalties, investments, bonds, and a small rental, my net worth sits at $12.8 million. This is not bait, it's context. Madison's hand covered her mouth. Lucas sagged, then straightened. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. Because character can't be inherited, I said. It's built, and now we build or we break. Which brings me to Nora. I placed a letter on the table. A subtrust for Nora is funded at $3.5 million. Education, health, reasonable housing, enrichment. Spendthrift protection. Trusteeship by a professional, not family. You cannot access it. At 26, it vests to her. That's a lot, Madison whispered. It's enough to free her from your panic, I said. Not enough to excuse her from work. I set my palms flat. Conditions, if you want any relationship with me that isn't through lawyers. I counted on my fingers. 1. Stop telling people I'm confused. Retract it privately and where you spread it. 2. All serious matters in writing.
3. Weekly counseling for 90 days, both of you, and one family session every other week. 4. A written schedule that guarantees Nora's time with me, daily touchpoints, and overnights as appropriate. Karen Patel has us Thursday at 2 to discuss best interests. We will listen to her. 5, I continued, budget transparency. Cut the cards, create a plan, follow it. I don't need to see your statements, but the counselor does. 6, a real apology to Nora for lying about my being sick. To me, you may take longer. Trust and forgiveness are earned. Lucas rubbed his jaw, eyes bright. And if we don't? Then you'll find that people with clear records and counsel don't get steamrolled, I said. If you push conservatorship or placement, I will respond fully and publicly to protect myself and Nora. If you choose honesty and repair, my door is open. Those are the only 2 roads. Silence settled. The clock ticked like a metronome practicing patience. Madison's shoulders dropped. I will go to counseling, she said, words pulled through gravel. I will stop the confused story. Lucas nodded. Me too. I'm sorry, Dad. I don't expect you to accept that today. I'm going upstairs to see my granddaughter, I said, lifting the recorder and slipping it into my pocket. Think about the road you're choosing. Put it in writing by tonight. I stood. On the stairs, the house creaked the way old houses do when truth finally weighs more than pretense. At the landing, I could see the edge of Nora's poster, planets turning on thread waiting. I tapped the doorframe with 2 knuckles the way I always do, a small courtesy before stepping into someone's sky. Nora's room smelled like paper and strawberry shampoo. Planets cut from cardstock hung by thread, slowly turning in the air from the vent. She sat cross-legged on the rug, markers fanned out like a color wheel. Are you leaving? She asked, voice steady but eyes not. I'm not being put anywhere, I said, kneeling so we were level. I'll be right next door soon. Until then, I'm here every day in the ways that matter. Her shoulders loosened a notch. Mom said... I heard what Mom said. I kept my voice even. When grown-ups are scared, sometimes they call control by a kind name. I'm drawing a line so we can do better. She looked at the remote still in my jacket pocket, and then at the window where her paper Saturn turned. How will I know you're okay? We're going to build a ritual, I said, pulling a small spiral notebook from my pocket. I have labeled tabs with my neat block printing, check-ins, signals, projects. 3:30 after school, we text hi within 5 minutes.
If I'm in a place where I can't talk, I'll send the word pinecone, and you'll know I'm fine but quiet. If you need me, text comet and I'll call." Her mouth quirked. "Pinecone and comet." "And when I move into maple," I went on, "my porch light will be our sign. 2 short, 1 long means I'm home and the kettle's on. If you want to say hi without waking anyone, you'll tap your window twice and I'll tap mine back. For now, we keep it simple. 3:30 texts, and I'll call you at 7 in the evening to hear a piece of your day." She nodded, serious the way 12 can be. "Okay, and if they say you're confused?" "You'll remember this conversation," I said. "You'll remember I know what day it is, what you're learning in science, and how to make French toast without burning it." I smiled. "Also, your math homework is due Monday." Her grin flashed, quick and real. "We're graphing data." "Good," I said, "because our first project is going to be data." I pointed to the range on her science poster. "We're going to build a little demonstration for your fair about kitchen safety, not just lectures tests. We'll time how long it takes a pan to heat to a certain temp, what happens when you leave a burner on low, how the auto-off module triggers. We'll make charts. You'll teach your class why safety is love in action." She reached for the notebook like it might flutter away. "Can I write it?" "It's yours," I said. "You're the lead scientist. I'm just your lab assistant with creaky knees." She turned the pages, touched the tabs, the way you do before a book becomes yours from the inside out. "Where will we do it? You don't have your keys yet." "At the diner next to my hotel tomorrow morning," I said. "They have waffles. We can plan and sketch. And when I have the maple keys, we'll measure, install, test. I'll show you how a good latch sounds." Nora took a breath like the room had been opened. She leaned into me, not the fast crash of fear, but the solid kind you give when you're done bracing. "Every day?" she said into my shirt. "Every day," I answered. Downstairs, the house gave a small settling sound, wood remembering how to hold weight. I stood and looked around her room, the way you memorize a map, where the lamp throws light, where the rug curls at one corner, where the window catches the afternoon. "If you ever feel lonely," I said, "you look at Jupiter there and remember its storms are big and loud and long, but they move. We're making a plan. That's calmer than a storm." My phone buzzed. A text from Lucas. "We'll send our plan tonight. Counseling booked Monday at 5. Karen Patel is set for Thursday at 2. She sent the invite. Also, could Nora have breakfast with you tomorrow?" I showed Nora the screen. Her eyes brightened. "Waffles," she said. "Waffles," I agreed. "And a sketch of a safer kitchen." I tapped the notebook. "Pinecone at 3:30 today?" She tapped the cover twice, a tiny, brave signal. "Pinecone," she said, "and comet if I need you." "Then I'll be there," I said, and the calendar on my phone pinged as if to say, "And we start." Sunday morning tasted like waffles and melted butter. Nora slid into the diner booth across from me, hair still damp from a quick shower, notebook already open. We drew a week on the paper boxes for days, lines for time, and began writing what would hold. 3:30 check-ins every school day, I said, pen steady. 7 o'clock call to hear one good thing from your day. Saturday morning project, she added, tapping the margin. Bike ride or science, your pick. When I have the maple keys, I said, Thursday dinners at my place. 1 overnight every other weekend if schoolwork's handled. She nodded like a foreman approving beam placement. We added no surprises in the corner. Any changes written, not shouted across a driveway. After breakfast, we walked to the hardware store. I bought 2 child guard latches, a stove knob cover, and a battery tester. In the aisle that smelled like pine and promise, I showed her how to measure a cabinet face, how to mark holes with painter's tape, how not to split wood by crowding the edge. You hear that click? I said, snapping a demo latch on a scrapboard. That's what love sounds like when it's practical. By afternoon, I had typed the schedule, plain and spare, and emailed it to Lucas and Madison with the subject line, Nora's Contact Plan Working Draft. Lucas replied within minutes, Looks good, we'll review tonight. Madison sent a single word, received. Thursday came with the clean lines of a neutral office. Karen Patel met us in a conference room that had a round table and a window overlooking downtown. She introduced herself to Nora first, eye level, handshake firm. I'm here to understand what helps you do well, she said. Grown-ups talk a lot. I listen.
Karen's questions moved like a good teacher's, simple, exact, not leading. How are mornings? Who helps with homework? When do you feel hurried? She asked me about routines, medications, fall risks, how I manage meals and bills. I handed over the capacity folder Lionel had me start. Appointments logged, utilities paid, receipts clipped square. Karen didn't smile, but her eyes softened. "Thank you," she said. "This is helpful." She turned to Lucas and Madison. Best interest of the child means stability, predictability, and no triangulating adults.
Here's what I'll recommend. Daily check-ins at 3:30, a 7 p.m. call, 2 evenings a week with Grandpa for homework and dinner, 1 weekend afternoon with flexibility for activities. Written changes only. No negative talk about the other home within earshot. Madison looked like she wanted to argue and then didn't. Lucas nodded, hands clasped as if to keep them from trying to fix the air. Karen continued, "Regarding Mr. Carter's living situation, any change must be clinically indicated, supported by evidence. The court expects least restrictive alternatives first. Home supports, safety devices, transportation help before anything like placement. Conservatorship is a last resort and cannot be used as debt relief." She made a few notes, then looked at Nora again. "Anything you want adults to stop doing?" "Calling things help when it's really control," Nora said, small but steady. Karen wrote it verbatim. "I'll circulate a memo today with recommendations and a template schedule. I'd like a brief school check-in next week and a home observation after Mr. Carter moves. For now, begin the plan you drafted. Put it in writing by tonight." We stood. Karen shook each hand the same way she'd shaken Nora's. "If anyone wants to talk to me," she said, "email is best. Feelings can go loud, paper stays calm." In the lobby, Nora slipped her hand into mine like a fact. My phone buzzed. Calendar, family counseling, Monday 5 p.m. confirmed. A second ping. "Lucas, we signed a plan and sent it back." Madison added, "We'll try." I typed, "Thank you, starting now." Outside, the late-day light pooled on the sidewalk like something you could step into and be steadier for it. The chairs were set in a circle, the kind that says there are no corners to hide in. The room smelled faintly of tea and dry erase marker. Marla Jensen, a licensed family therapist with a calm teacher's posture, waited until we all sat. "Thank you for coming," she said. "We will go in turns. Short, honest, concrete. Lucas?" He stared at the patterned rug. "We are under pressure," he said. "Debt. Overtime. I told myself I was protecting everyone by fixing it fast. I let fast mean without asking permission. I am sorry." He looked up at me. "Especially to you, Dad." Marla nodded once. "Madison." Madison laced and unlaced her fingers. "When I was 12, the lights went off for a week. My mother pretended it was camping. I swore my kid would never feel that kind of fear. Somewhere I turned fear into control. I called it help and tried to make it polite. I am sorry." Marla turned to me. "Sam, what do you need them to hear?" I kept my voice even. "Words matter, but habits matter more. I will not be placed. I will be a steady grandparent. If we are going to repair, it will be by showing Nora what safety sounds like, not just saying the word." "Good," Marla said. "Now we translate talking into doing." She wrote 3 headings on a pad: time, money, story. Under time, you will commit to daily and weekly moments that are real, not aspirational. Under money, you will commit to steps you can count. Under story, you will commit to what you will stop saying. She looked at Lucas and Madison. "Propose specifics." Lucas cleared his throat. "Family dinner 4 nights a week at home, phones away. I read with Nora 30 minutes, 5 nights a week." He glanced at me. "Thursday dinner at Dad's, plus every other Saturday afternoon there." Madison added, "I will cut up the credit cards tonight and bring the pieces next session. We will meet with a nonprofit counselor this week and send you the written budget within 10 days. Marla wrote briskly. "Good. Story?" Madison's eyes shone. "I will call the neighbors I scared and correct what I said. No more confused. If I am worried, I will say worried and ask for help without inventing symptoms." Lucas said, "All changes in writing. No threats, no for your own good talk." Marla slid a page to me.
Sam, your items. Thursday dinner at my place, I said. One overnight every other weekend, schoolwork permitting. I will text Nora at 3:30 and call at 7. I will attend counseling when invited, not to score points, but to model repair. Marla drew boxes beside each item. These are this week's homework. Check boxes when done. Photograph and email me on Sunday night. She capped her pen. 2 more pieces. Apologies are verbs. Tonight, you will apologize to Nora for lying about her grandfather being sick, and you will name what you will do differently. Also, money. You will bring a trash bag of cut cards next week. I will not accept promises without pieces. Lucas managed a rueful smile. Understood. Marla stood, the signal that the hour had run. Repair is boring on purpose, she said. Boring keeps children safe. See you in 7 days. In the parking lot, cool evening air held the day's heat like a memory. Lucas looked at me. Thursday, he said, not a question. 6 o'clock? I nodded. My phone buzzed. An email from Marla arrived. Session summary, homework, and a blank grid labeled Week 1. Beneath it, a single line. Paper stays calm. By midweek, the grid Marla had emailed sat on Lucas's fridge with 3 boxes checked in blue. Family dinners, Thursday with Grandpa, budget meeting scheduled. The house smelled like tomato sauce and something warm and yeasty. Phones were stacked on the counter, face down. Nora set 3 plates, humming under her breath. After we ate, Lucas rinsed dishes and wiped the table like a man relearning muscle memory. Book time, he said. He and Nora curled into the sofa with a paperback about a girl who builds things from spare parts. He read 30 minutes out loud, voice steady, asking questions the way good readers do. Madison listened from the chair, not interrupting, just present. At the kitchen island afterward, Madison slid a zip-top bag across to me. Inside, confetti of plastic and embossed names. All the cards, she said. I cut them. We meet the nonprofit counselor Friday at 10. We'll send the written budget the middle of next week. She held my gaze. No more pretending we can outspend a feeling. Good, I said. Paper stays calm. Thursday dinner moved to Maple even before I had the keys, courtesy of takeout and an empty house that felt like a blank staff waiting for notes. We sat on the floor around the coffee table I'd hauled in from storage, the one with a scar where Nora learned not to drag a chisel. We sketched the Stovewatch demo on graph paper, axes labeled time and temperature, notes about pan materials, variables bolded. Control first, I told her. Same burner, same pan, same starting temperature. We only change one thing at a time. She logged it all, careful and neat. We taped a chart to the wall and set the portable induction burner on the table, a stand-in until my range arrived. She grinned when the probe beeped, numbers marching into cents. Halfway through a second run, a small dizziness wavered at the edges of my vision. The room didn't tilt, but it considered it. I set the thermometer down. Pause, I said. Nora looked up, assessed, and moved without drama. She turned the burner off, slid the pan to a trivet, and touched my elbow. Sit, she said, the calm of a 12-year-old who is practiced. She fetched the juice box from the backpack we'd packed for just in case, set it in my hand, and checked the time on her watch. 3 minutes, sip slow. She opened the notebook to the safety tab, found the bulleted list we'd written together, and tracked with a finger. Seat, sugar, breathe, reassess. She did not call for anyone. She did not gasp the moment with fear. By the time 3 minutes passed, the fuzziness had thinned. I breathed in, deep and even. Thank you, I said. She shrugged like you do when you remember a drill and simply run it. You taught me to be loud when it matters. Right now wasn't loud. We finished logging the second run and left a margin note. Unexpected variable, Grandpa. She drew a small smile by it, then closed the notebook. I showed her how to coil the probe wire without kinks and why that matters to people who come after you and don't know the story. On Sunday, a photo went to Marla. The week 1 grid with boxes checked. Dinners, reading, Thursday dinner, daily check-ins, 7 o'clock calls. A second photo followed. Madison's bag of card confetti, labeled with the date. Marla responded with a single thumbs-up emoji and a line, "See you tomorrow." That evening, Lucas walked me to Maple with 2 folding chairs. The block was quiet in that Boise way, sprinklers ticking, a dog choosing not to bark. He set a chair on the porch and sat. "Thank you for Thursday," he said. "It's different when you put things on paper." "It is," I said.
He watched his hands for a moment, then looked toward my garage, where the pegboard still leaned against the wall, waiting to be hung. "Do you have time to talk? Just us," he asked. "About when I was 10, your workshop." "Now?" I said. "If you can," he answered, voice careful, like a man stepping back into a room he once left too fast.
Lucas set the chairs side by side on my porch, then sat like he was easing into cold water. The block was quiet, sprinklers ticking, a dog choosing not to bark. He looked at his hands and then at my garage, where the pegboard still leaned against the wall. "When I was 10, he said, you let me sand the edge of that maple board until it was square. I messed it up. You didn't yell, you just flipped the board, showed me how to check for square, and said, measure your breath before you measure the cut. I haven't been measuring my breath." I let the quiet do a little work. "What breath are you measuring now?" "The part that panics," he said. "I kept trying to fix everything fast. Fast turned into secret, secret turned into wrong." He rubbed his jaw. "I can't apologize you back to before this. I can only do the grid and keep doing it." "That's the work," I said, boring on purpose. He nodded, eyes bright and unashamed. "I'd like, when you're ready, to bring Nora into your garage and hear about the things you made. Not the money, the why." "We'll do that," I said, when the pegboard's on the wall. Footsteps on the walkway. Madison stood at the bottom step with no perfume, hair pulled back, hands empty. She looked smaller without the noise she usually wore. "May I?" she asked. I nudged the spare chair with my foot. She sat, spine straight like a person trying not to lean on anything that isn't hers. "I apologized to Nora," she said, voice steady. "I told her I lied. She asked me why grown-ups call control help. I told her I was afraid and tried to make fear sound polite." She swallowed. "I am sorry, Sam. I said the words confused and for your own good out loud to people who will repeat them. I've started calling to correct it." She ticked names off on her fingers. Mrs. Delaney next door, the PTA treasurer, the neighbor who walks the golden retriever. "I will call the rest by Friday. I wrote it down so I can send you a photo when I've done it." "Paper stays calm," I said. She nodded. "We met the nonprofit counselor, Friday. We'll bring the written budget to Marla next week. I unsubscribed from the sale emails. I deleted the shopping apps. I put parental controls on my phone for me." A thin smile that wasn't for effect. "I brought you nothing. Not a plan to sell you, not a plea. Just the truth. I will do the 90 days. I will keep doing them after." I let my hands rest on my knees, palms open. "The conditions haven't changed," I said. 90 days of counseling, daily and weekly schedule with Nora, written changes only, no confused talk, budget with a counselor, apology to Nora done. You send the grid on Sundays. At 90, we reassess. Fail the grid, we reset to paper and counsel. Pass it, and we widen what trust can hold. That's it. "I understand," she said. "I won't ask you for money. If there's an emergency, we'll ask Marla how to handle it, not you." She huffed a breath, something like a laugh at herself. "I memorized that sentence." "Good," I said. "Keep it memorized." She stood. "May I shake your hand?" It wasn't a demand. It was a question from a person who finally learned to ask. I stood too. We shook. Her hand was cool, dry, serious. She left without adding any shine that didn't belong, and I was grateful for the absence. Lucas stayed a moment. "Saturday," he said, softer. "Discovery Center? Nora's been talking about the demo you two are building. We could make it a family thing." "Put it in writing," I said, then smiled to take the edge off because it wasn't an edge, it was a rule. "Send a time." He texted before he hit the sidewalk. "Saturday, 2 p.m., Discovery Center of Idaho. We'll bring notebooks." When the street settled again, I looked at the dark square where the pegboard would sit and at the fence line catching the last light. The house breathed that small, settling sound old houses make when everyone starts telling the truth at the same time. My phone buzzed Marla's check-in reminder. I snapped a photo of the three of us on the porch, no faces, just 3 chairs and a strip of porch light. Caption, Week 2 starting. Saturday warmed the block like someone turned the light up a notch. Nora coasted down the driveway on her bike, knees out a little, then lifted both hands for a count of 3. "No hands," she called, laughing, then grabbed the grips again, graceful as a bird deciding to land. I sat on the porch with 2 mugs of tea cooling and the keys to Maple now heavy in my pocket, a small weight that felt like rightness. Lucas came up the walk, a canvas tote over his shoulder. "Notebooks," he said, patting the bag, "and sandwiches for the museum later." Nora braked at the curb and swung her leg over like she'd been doing it her whole life, and also like it was new every time. "Are we still going?" she asked. "We're going," I said, "but first 5 minutes in the garage." We stepped into the cool of the Maple garage. The pegboard hung now, each hook labeled in my block print: screwdrivers, wrenches, measuring, safety. I tapped the small wooden sign I'd screwed above the bench. "Safety is love in action." "This is where the ideas came from," I told Nora, running a hand along the bench's edge. "Not because I wanted to sell something."
Because I wanted a latch that didn't forget, a sensor that didn't blink and miss. Your grandmother used to say, if love is a feeling, it's hard to measure. If love is a habit, you can count it. So I built habits for houses. Lucas leaned on the door jamb, not intruding, listening with the quiet you earn by not making it about you. "Tell her about the first prototype," he said. "The garage sensor," I said. "I was tired of seeing doors half closed at night. I rigged a magnet and a reed switch and a chime that wouldn't quit until the door finished what it started. Your dad hated it because it squealed if he tried to sneak out for a late drive." Nora laughed. Lucas did too, a real sound that remembered being 17. "It worked," he said. "I never made it out without you knowing." "We'll build a tiny version for your science fair," I told Nora. "Not the same, just the idea. You'll show input, output, and what happens in the middle. You'll use words your class can own. The point isn't to be fancy. The point is that ordinary can be better on purpose." She traced the outline of the bench vise with a finger. "Can I try it?" she asked. "After the museum," I said. "We've got a date with the pendulum and the shadow room." On the way out, I pressed a small key on a blue lanyard into Nora's hand. "Backdoor," I said. "It only lets you in when I'm home. We'll add your fingerprint to the deadbolt when your mom and dad sign off. For now, this is so you know there's a door that opens from the inside." She looped the lanyard over her head, the key thumping once against her t-shirt like a promise. At the Discovery Center, we moved through rooms where kids made fog and balanced blocks and turned cranks that lit bulbs. Nora kept a list, head down, then head up, cross-checking what she felt with what she saw. Lucas asked questions that started with how instead of why don't you. Madison met us there, hair in a loose knot, a tote bag with water, and the sort of crackers you give a child who's busy. She didn't run the show, she joined it. In the gallery with the big metal pendulum, Nora watched the sand draw circles and then lines as time made its argument. "It keeps going until someone stops it," she said. "Or until friction slows it," I said. Which is just the world asking for patience. On a bench between exhibits, we unwrapped sandwiches. Madison looked at me. "I called Mrs. Delaney," she said, unprompted. "She told the book club I was wrong. I'm working down the list." She looked at Nora. "Thank you for letting me meet you here." Nora chewed and shrugged. "It's the museum," she said, as if that could explain why grace sometimes sneaks in where you plan to learn about forces and light. Back home, Nora took a slow lap on her bike while the evening cooled. She lifted both hands again, longer this time, then set them down. Lucas stood beside me, not saying anything for once, which was also a kind of apology that didn't ask to be acknowledged. "Next week," he said finally, "can I help hang the last shelf in the garage?" "You can," I said, and didn't make the joke that used to live in my mouth about measuring twice. He already knew. Nora coasted in, toes down, satisfied. "I like when days end like this," she said. "So do I told her. The porch light clicked on at its timer, 2 short, 1 long, casting a soft circle on the step. It felt less like a signal and more like a heartbeat you can see. Evenings fall softer now. On my porch at Maple, the kettle clicks off and the light blinks our small code, 2 short, 1 long, more habit than signal. Across the fence, Lucas's kitchen window holds the gold of cleanup. Dishes stack, someone laughs, the neighborhood dog considers barking and doesn't. The fence reads less like a wall than a line we all agree to meet at without stepping over boundary as kindness. Paper helps. The week 2 grid shows more checks than blanks. Marla's note, "See you Monday," waits in my inbox. Karen's school check-in said simply, "Nora calmer with predictable contact. Continue." At 3:30, her text landed Pinecone. At 7, she told me the pendulum was her favorite part of the week, not moving anymore, just making sense. Thursday dinners have become dinner plus a walk, arguing cheerfully about whether a chart needs 3 colors or 4. Lucas steps onto his porch and raises a mug. "Budget draft tomorrow," he calls. "We'll email before counseling." Paper stays calm, I answer. Madison appears beside him, hair in a simple knot, hands empty on purpose. "I finish the calls," she says.
If I missed anyone, I'll keep listening. She doesn't add shine that doesn't belong. Repair is busy and quiet. I think about the numbers I kept tidy all these years. Royalties, bonds, accounts, and how money is a lever but not a cure. Character places the fulcrum. I showed my numbers only to draw a line with ink, not volume. A clean line can be a kind of kindness too. Nora comes out with her notebook and sits beside me. "I picked 3 colors," she says, as if a council might convene to applaud it. "Blue for time, red for temperature, green for mistakes we learn from." "Green for learning," I say. "Good color." She rests her head against my shoulder. "When can we add my fingerprint to the back door?" "When your mom and dad sign off," I say. "We do it the right way, even when the right way is slower." "Slow is okay," she says. The pendulum was slow and still made a picture. Streetlights string on up the block. A bike rattles past with cards pegged to spokes. Ordinary, on purpose. This is what I wanted for her. Safety that doesn't feel like a cage. Love you can count in small, steady ways. If this found a quiet place in you, I'd be grateful for a few words what stayed with you and where you're listening from. And if someone you care about might need a steadier story, feel free to pass it along softly. In the quiet resolution of this story, the true lesson is that trust is not repaired by promises, but by consistent action. Even after the sting of family betrayal, steady steps can rebuild the bridge. Remember that God sees the truth and strengthens those who stand firm with grace. If this reflection speaks to you, I invite you to share your thoughts below or pass it on to someone who might need it.